What's up guys, welcome back. I feel like my recent uploads have been behind the scenes or like tutorial based on how I shoot, but today we're talking about editing. So today I'm bringing you along on how I've sped up my editing process. I definitely feel like within my own photography, editing is really where I get to bring a photo to life. But as I continue to do photography and improve, I feel like my editing process has just gotten slower and slower, which kind of doesn't really sound like it makes any sense, but I feel like it's just because I'm learning so much more as the years go on. So I'm finding new tools or new kind of techniques on how to kind of better edit. I don't know about any of you guys, but I know for me, I also love to start an edit and then come back to it like the next day or even like the next few days or even the next week. I can spend like weeks and months literally editing a single photo set. And while it's definitely important to kind of sit on a photo and come back to it and make sure that you're really happy with it, it's also important to finish the edit and send it to where it needs to go. And so today I'm gonna be talking about how I have kind of been able to kind of keep that level of quality, but also make things just move along quicker. And so today I'll be working with my friends over at Skylum and using their program Luminar Neo. And if you're unfamiliar with what Luminar Neo is, it's basically a one-stop shop for creators and photographers to be able to edit images as they imagine them in a really kind of concise and pretty simple way. And it does this by utilizing different AI-driven tools. They have a total of 7 different extensions you can use and download for yourself and play around with. And so we're gonna be talking about those as well as we dive into the editing today. So let's get right on into it. All right, I just flipped you guys vertically so you can watch me while I edit. But the photo we'll be editing today is of my friend Kaylee. We rented out a big warehouse that had kind of all these little different rooms. So I utilized kind of like that broken window back there to shine a flash through. And then I used a fog machine to kind of make it a little bit more hazy and just like emphasize all of that light. I do really like the before photo here, but I feel like there's obviously things we can do to make it better. So I'm gonna head on over to develop and just bring down the exposure a bit and increase the highlights. This is something I always do first, just to set the exposure and shadows and highlights how I would like to shoot it, but never quite do. I also feel like this image is kind of teetering on the warmer side, but I want to kind of make that even warmer. So I'm gonna head to the landscape tab and increase the golden hour slider. This tab here is for landscapes. There's like a foliage enhancer, but I feel like the flash that we have going on is kind of emulating sun, so this works for what we're going for. This room was definitely low lit, so there is some grain if we zoom in. Like, it's not totally taking away from the overall photo, but it would be nice to just kind of clear that out. So I'm gonna head on over to one of the extensions here that Luminar has for us called Noiseless AI. And what this kind of does is use different algorithms to recognize what's happening in the photo and then decrease the noise and bring just a higher quality result. The advice here for me is to use the low adjustment for this image, so that's what I'm gonna do. I actually do really tend to like when an image feels really clean and almost like noiseless. I feel like it just kind of exudes like a painterly look to a photo. But yeah, I feel like this still did a really good job at retaining the details and the quality, and obviously has some more sliders here that we can play with. So I'm just gonna increase the sharpness just a little bit. And another extension we'll be using on this photo is Magic Light. And what this one does is kind of analyze your photo and looks for any points within it that are emitting light. So I'm just gonna play around a little bit with the intensity and the different options it has for me. I think this is a really cool sort of feature because normally I would totally do this, but I would do it manually by using different blending modes and overlays, which can be so time consuming, and this just kind of is great because it's almost just doing it for us. We can change up the number of beams and even the rotation. So I kind of want to get the beam in line with some of the already existing sort of points of light here, and I can literally just play with this for hours, but I feel like this looks pretty good. The next thing I want to play with is just the overall mood of the image. So we're gonna literally head to this option that says mood and play with some of the LUTs that it has for us. I do feel like this image feels pretty cinematic, so I want to go with a cinematic sort of LUT. So I'm just gonna kind of go through here and pick out one that looks pretty good. Well, it's kind of cool. Okay, I'm gonna go with that one, and what we could do is just play with the intensity of that and just make sure it's exactly how we want it to look. I love when you get to that point within your edit that it's just like all making sense. I know that I just got rid of the grain in this image, but there's something about like adding fake grain that just hits. I always do this. If there's grain in the original image, I'm like, I don't want it. But once I add my own, it's like, now it's fine. I don't know what's wrong with me. But one more thing I'm gonna do to this image is just emphasize the vignette happening, because I feel like the changes we're making to this photo feel really dramatic, so why not just go the extra mile? So we're gonna head on over to vignette. We're gonna choose our subject just so it's recognizing where Kaylee is in the photo, and then it'll kind of work around her. I think that's looking pretty good. Okay, we kind of killed it. I feel like this is ready to export. So here is our final photo. All right, we're moving on to our second photo we'll be editing today. It's of my friend Kaylee again. We headed on over to this really pretty flower field in Silver Lake in LA. We had Kaylee in this really pretty pink dress that I feel like complements the flowers really well. But I chose this photo for a reason, and it's because there's a few mistakes happening. So I'm gonna be showing you guys how we can go about fixing those mistakes. The first one is that I shot this image in JPEG, which doesn't have to be considered a mistake, but I do really like to shoot all of my images in RAW. I feel like because I like to play around within the edit, it offers just a bigger file format for me to play around in. First things first, what we can actually do here is bring this photo into one of Luminar's extensions called Upscale. And what this does is enhance the image's resolution up to 6 times using different AI-driven tools. So for this one, it does say that the 4 times and the 6 times would exceed the maximum output size, so it just recommends me to go for the 2x option. So what we're gonna do is just head on over to Upscale, and then we're done basically with increasing the image size. Now this doesn't necessarily fix everything, of course. We're still working with a JPEG, but it's amazing that we could even kind of work on a larger image size when it wasn't shot in that. I just think that's really cool. Another thing I want to fix within this image, which is kind of funny because I approached this in a way that was intentional, but for this specific image, I feel like it doesn't come across that way, is sort of like the motion blur happening. I really do love like a slow shutter drag moment within my photos sometimes, but I feel like it has to be done well if you're gonna do it, because it can tend to just make your photo look like it was shot out of focus. And I think that's what's happening within this photo. So what we can do is head on over to the Super Sharp extension and make an adjustment based on depth, perspective, and just the whole context of the photo. I honestly feel like this already looks way better than it did, but I'm gonna try the middle option now and see if we can just push it to be that much more in focus. Sweet, okay, I feel like that looks great. Now we can just move forward with different color grading options to make this photo look like it wasn't a complete flop. I do feel like the highlights are a little bit blown out, so we're just gonna decrease those as well as increase the exposure and the contrast like we did for our previous image. I also do feel like sometimes a color grade and just adding contrast can kind of trick the eye into feeling like a photo is more in focus. So I feel like all of these different tools are definitely helping this photo along, and I'm actually starting to like it, which I didn't think was even an option. After a few more adjustments, here is the final photo I ended up with. All right, moving on. This next photo is of my friend Lexi. We shot this around sunset on her rooftop, and the extension I'll be using this time around is called focus stacking. And basically what this does is takes different images shot at different focal lengths and delivers you a photo that is super crisp and clear. So it's basically taking all of the information that it sees within all of those different images, and yeah, it gives you an image that is just perfectly in focus. This is really great for me because I tend to shoot in low light a lot, so that has me kind of aiming for an aperture that is like f1.2 or f1.4, but that tends to kind of blur out the backdrop a little bit too much sometimes. So what you do with focus stacking here is shoot your subject in focus and then shoot the backdrop in focus. And then what it'll do is kind of combine the two into one image so everything's in focus. So I'm gonna take these two images here and drop them into the focus stacking extension right here, and then just press stack and it'll deliver that kind of combined image. So we can bring this right into the edit and play around with anything we want. It's still kind of mind-blowing to me that there's this technology that we can utilize to make our processes and images that much better. It's really interesting to see where this photography and editing space is going. I feel like this image could look really cool with kind of like a film color grade on it, because it already kind of feels like an image taken from like a movie or like a short film or something. This is the final result of this edit. Okay, moving right along into our next extension, we have HDR merge. And what this can do is merge together up to 10 photos that have different levels of exposure. So say on your shoot day, you're trying to kind of figure out what exposure you're aiming for. You're going a little bit too high on some shots and a little bit too low on others. But other than that, you feel like everything in the image looks great. What you could do is combine those images and it'll kind of analyze different things like tone, contrast, and bring out all of these details that feels really close to what the human eye would see. So I have these two images that I shot at different exposures. Neither are quite right. So I'm gonna take these and bring them over to the HDR merge panel over here and then just merge those together. I feel like this image isn't anything too exciting. I just kind of shot it to create a little phone background. I have a bunch of different phone backgrounds for download on my website, and sometimes I like to kind of create new packs there. And so, I don't know, I just took this photo of this palm leaf in my bedroom, but I could just go in here and play around a little bit more with the exposure to get it exactly how I want, and then we're good to go. Okay, the final feature I want to show you guys is background removal AI. If you guys have ever taken the time to remove someone from your image, you know how time consuming it could be from going in there and masking out different hair pieces and different edges. It just starts to take forever. And so what we can do here is head on over to Edit, Layer Properties under the Tools tab, and go to Masking and Background Removal. This is great if you're shooting any product photos or anything where you need to edit the background differently or even put the subject or whatever you're shooting onto a different backdrop. And we can just press remove. And honestly, I feel like this did a really good job at just knowing where her hair was and working around that. All right, you made it to the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. A huge thank you to Luminar Neo for working with me on this video. It means a lot. And if you would like to get your hands on your own for the best deal, be sure to check the description below for the correct links. I'll leave everything you need to know. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed. And with all of that, I will see you guys very soon. Bye.